What is up, you guys? Ryan Brewer back here, the host of Michael Myers Reacts, and welcome to Ranking Podcast 11. I'm sure most of you can tell by now from the title and the thumbnail, I am ranking the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. I do kind of have a funny story about this. First off, I want to thank everyone who follows me on Instagram because I did a poll on there yesterday. I asked you guys, what would you rather see, an H5 review or a Chainsaw ranking podcast, pretty much, and obviously the ranking podcast won. It was funny because the Texas Chainsaw Massacre ranking was completely blowing the H5 review out of the water, and then H5 started creeping up there again. So at some point, I will do my H5 review because some of you may not know, but I was reviewing the Halloween franchise and I stopped at Halloween 4, so obviously I got to do Halloween 5. But I think it's kind of a funny story that Chainsaw was like literally blowing H5 out of the water and then it started creeping up on it. But yeah, today I'm going to be ranking the Texas Chainsaw franchise. Some of you might think this is dumb due to the fact that there is a new Chainsaw movie coming out later this year. I get that. The reason why I'm doing it now is because I really don't think my ranking is going to change too much anyways, even though there is a new movie coming out. I'm going to have to do some re-rankings anyway at some point, so maybe I'll re-rank this franchise in the future. I probably won't re-rank it this year, though. If anything, it'll be probably 2022 or something like that, or 2023, because like I said, I don't think it's going to change very much. But with that being said, let's just go ahead and get into this. So as some of you might know, my podcasts kind of go all over the place sometimes. I have some that are worst to best, best to worst, whatever. This one I'm going to do worst to best, and with that being said, I just want to go ahead and get right into this. Number 8 on my list is going to have to go to Leatherface from 2017. I'm not even going to sit here and talk about it that much because it's not worth the time. I think it's garbage. It doesn't even feel like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and the whole backstory thing is just a fail in that movie, in my opinion. I don't even think I've seen the movie in its entirety, so I just don't even want to cover it on here. I just never liked what I seen of the movie. I just never liked, and I never will like it, so I'm just not even going to waste my time on it. That's a movie that definitely shouldn't have been made, but hey, what can you do about it? I also want to remind you guys that I'm not here to review these movies. I'm strictly just ranking these films for you guys. I'm not here to review them, so I'm not really going to talk deep into like the plot of the movie and stuff like that. At some point, I probably will review some more of the Texas Chainsaw movies. I have reviewed the original Texas Chainsaw. If you guys want to watch that, I will leave a link in the description down below. I just wanted to make that clear and remind you guys because I'm definitely not here to review these. I'm just ranking them, and I'm just here to give you guys my thoughts and my ranking. That's all I'm here to do. So number 7 on my list, actually I got kind of a funny story with this one. Number 7 on my list is going to go to Texas Chainsaw 3D that was released in 2013. I was 14 when this movie came out, and funny enough, when this movie first came out, I actually liked it. I still don't think it's like the worst horror movie ever made, but I'm still not a fan of it. I think it's just the guy who played Leatherface in the 2013 movie did fine. I don't remember the guy's name, but whoever played Leatherface in the 2013 movie did fine. But the movie overall is just not memorable to me. And the only thing I remember is Leatherface had a cousin in that movie, and Gunnar Henson is in the beginning of the movie. He made a cameo. That's cool, but that doesn't make the movie any better. I guess in a way I could see why people might like this movie. For me, it just, I don't know. It did feel like a Chainsaw movie, unlike Leatherface, so I guess it had that going for it, but overall it's not good. I mean, the Chainsaw series at this point, as you guys can already tell from this ranking, when the franchise went on, it just got worse. So I don't think it's a big surprise that I put this one here personally, even though some of you are probably like, wait, so you're saying Texas Chainsaw 2013 is worse than Next Generation? And in my opinion, it is, but we're going to get into that soon. And now number 6 on my list is Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. I have a funny story with this one too. I would say most Chainsaw fans would say this is the worst one in the franchise, but in my opinion, it isn't. Now, I do realize that Next Generation isn't a good movie, but it definitely is a fun movie. Leatherface, the character of Leatherface pretty much takes a backseat in this movie, and I know some people may not like that, and personally, I don't, but overall, The Next Generation is such a crazy movie. It's like one of those movies that it's so bad that it's good. Like, it's such a crazy movie that I kind of have fun with it. It's definitely one of those movies where you can invite some friends over and have some popcorn and just have a good time. You definitely can't take this movie serious. It's definitely a horror comedy, but you know, I can't say that that's the downfall of it, because Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is a horror comedy. So that's not the downfall of it. It's just, this movie just wasn't done right. But if you just look at it as a good time and don't take it too serious, I really do think you can have fun with this movie. So in my opinion, now we're at the point where this ranking gets a little harder. So number, I think 5 on my list is going to go to Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. This is one that I don't watch a lot, but every time I watch it, I do enjoy it. I do respect Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, because at this point in the franchise, they were trying to bring the horror aspect back to the franchise, so I really like that a lot. And the dude who played Leatherface in this movie did a really good job, in my opinion. If I am correct, I believe even Kane Hodder played Leatherface for a scene in the movie, which is really cool, of course. But overall, this one, I really like this one. It's one that I don't watch a lot, so I can't talk about it too much. It's just one that every time I watch, I definitely enjoy it. This is actually one that I need to watch a lot more. It's definitely one I would go back to, because every time I watch it, as I said, it's really good. It's a really fun time, and I respect it for trying to be scary again, if you will. So yeah, I had to put it here. I feel like this is definitely the center of the franchise. Like, we're out of the bad ones now, and now we're kind of in the middle. This movie, I would say, definitely does fall in the middle. It's not the best one, and it's definitely not the worst one, so I think this is a perfect spot for it. So if you guys haven't seen Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, I highly recommend it, because it really is a good time, especially if you're a fan of Leatherface and the Chainsaw franchise. This is one that you definitely shouldn't look over. Definitely give it a watch. So number 4 on my list is going to have to go to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning. And I have kind of another funny story about this. I believe in 2019 on my channel, I did a video called Top 5 Horror Movies That I Wish Didn't Exist. And funny enough, this movie made that list, and I still agree with it to some extent, because I did go back and watch that video recently. For some reason, I seen it, and I was like, I'm going to check it out, because I can't remember what I said. And like I said, this movie made that list, and I don't 100% agree with that anymore. I'm really glad that this movie exists. I still had some points that I still kind of agree with, like a prequel to a remake still sounds weird to me. I still agree with that, but I'm actually really glad that this prequel was made, because personally, this is actually one of my favorite prequels of all time. And not only is it one of my favorite prequels of all time, I mean, it's a prequel to one of the best horror remakes ever made. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake is just absolutely perfect, and we're going to get into that very soon. But this prequel is really good. I believe the same guy who played Leatherface in the remake came back for this one, did a terrific job. Pretty much the entire cast from the remake, not the characters who died, of course, but pretty much the entire cast from the remake came back for this one. And it was just perfect. It has the feel of the 2003 remake, and I think that's the main positive thing of this one, is it feels like the 2003 remake, and I have a really fun time with this one. I don't know, I just have a really good time with this one. This movie still gets a lot of hate from horror fans and Chainsaw fans, and I really don't know why, because it's just so fun, it's so good, and I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, I guess some people just don't like this movie. It just is what it is, but I just can't comprehend that, because it's a good movie. So number 3 on my list probably isn't going to come as a surprise, and that is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from 2003. As I said earlier in the podcast, I really do think it's one of the best horror remakes ever made. I don't have a lot of complaints about it. I'm not going to talk about it too much, because this is a movie that I definitely want to review on the channel for you guys. I think most of you have probably seen this remake. I think almost every single horror fan has seen it. It's so good. If you haven't seen it, you really need to see it. Another thing too, I feel like that the remake was casted perfectly, and I also respect the remake for sort of being its own thing. It's not so much of a remake. I would say it's more of a reboot, because it is similar to the original, but it's very different at the same time. So I respect it for that, and I think that's another reason why this remake is so loved and was so successful, because it felt like Texas Chainsaw, but at the same time it was being its own thing. So I definitely respect it for that. There's definitely some similarities between the original and this remake, but overall I would say this is very different than the original, and that's something I really like about the movie. So number 2 on my list is going to have to go to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, one of my favorite horror comedies of all time. It's not my top 5, because most of you probably already know that I recently did a top 5 favorite horror comedy video, and this didn't make that list. It's definitely in the top 10 though, because I think this is another perfect horror comedy movie. It's funny because obviously the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie is very disgusting and dark, but I feel like this one may even be a little more disgusting and dark than the first one. Just due to the fact because of how perverted Leatherface is in this movie, it's very disturbing. That alone is very disturbing. Another thing too, this one is also casted perfectly. I mean, we got Bill Moseley as Chop Top, and Chop Top is absolutely iconic for this franchise, of course. And I'm a big fan of Bill Moseley. You can never go wrong with Bill Moseley. And Caroline Williams as Stretch was perfect as well. And the whole radio thing is so fun. Just everything about this movie is fun. Like there's no complaints with this one either for me. I just think it's a fun ride. I mean, you can't take this one too serious either because you're going to be disappointed. Because honestly, the first time I watched this movie, I didn't know anything about Chainsaw 2, and I kind of went into it thinking it was going to be serious like the original movie, and it wasn't. And I was kind of let down for my first experience. But after a while, I realized what the movie was and what it was supposed to be, and I appreciated it more for that. So, you know, now I love the movie. So if you've watched it and you didn't like it because you wanted it to be serious or you thought it was going to be serious, give the movie another chance for sure. So here we are, number 1 on my list. This shouldn't come as a surprise at all, especially since we're at the end of this ranking, and that goes to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. This one, there's not a lot to say about it. I mean, everybody knows this movie, especially if you're a horror fan, of course. Everybody loves this movie. I really do think this is one of the movies that defined the slasher genre. It's one of the best horror movies ever made. I'd probably at least put it in my top 10, I would say. It's so good and perfect. And of course, it was directed by one of the best horror directors of all time, Tobe Hooper. He did great with this movie. Personally, this is my favorite Tobe Hooper movie. I haven't seen all of his movies, and I kind of need to explore more into his movies. I know he did like The Fun House and a few episodes of Masters of Horror, whatever. But this one is definitely his best movie in my opinion. That will never change because I love this movie. And of course, we had the best portrayal of Leatherface with Gunnar Henson. He did amazing. Like I said, he did cameo in the 2013 movie, which I thought was cool as well. I wish he would have played Leatherface more. Unfortunately, he didn't. I believe, I could be wrong, maybe he played him in a scene in one of them, but I'm pretty sure he only played Leatherface in the original movie. I wish he would have played him again in the second movie, but that's fine. You know, it is what it is. He's definitely the best Leatherface there is, but of course other people can portray Leatherface. Rest in peace, Gunnar Henson, for one. Of course, he is missed. And again, perfect casting for this movie. And this one, the reason why this one stands out so much is because I feel like this one feels more real than the other ones. I mean, this is obviously the first movie, so this was the first time people were seeing the character of Leatherface and the Sawyer family. So I think that has something to do with it as well. But this movie definitely felt real. I mean, we were following these people traveling, and you know, a lot of people travel and they go through roads that don't have much around it, like rural areas and stuff like that. And it just felt so real. And I think that's what really made this first movie scary. And personally, if you ask me, Sally is one of the best final girls in horror history, and that ending to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is absolutely iconic, with Leatherface swinging the chainsaw around and Sally in the back of the truck. Absolutely iconic. Anyone can recognize that if you're a horror fan, and this movie is just the best one. Again, if you guys want to hear me talk about this movie in more detail, I do have a review for it. I will have the link in the description down below if you guys want to watch that video. But with all this being said, that is my ranking for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. You guys can let me know your ranking in the comment section down below. If you guys did enjoy this podcast, please leave a like and subscribe. That would be much appreciated. And I will see you guys on the next video.